Hello, everyone. You know what day it is. You know what time it is. Saturday is Saturday, and Saturday is Saturday. Hi, OJ. Good boy. There you go. As always, he's gonna make me pay for it later in some fashion. But I hope everybody's doing well. I'm getting by. It's been a crazy week this week. If it hasn't been random explosions by my window on Sunday, the storm surge from Hurricane Ida more or less knocked out the subway system or severely, I'm not going to say damaged, because it's not like it was like Superstorm Sandy. It wasn't. But, it made it difficult to travel, right? Like Thursday and Friday. So I ended up working from home. And one of the home health aides that help out with my sick family member ended up having to stay overnight because the person who was supposed to come to relieve her came late because of the trains. And then by the time it was time for her to leave, it was like 9:30, and we were like, look, we don't want you going out there. You're not familiar with this area. The trains are all messed up, so we more or less talked her into staying. Although I actually did try to call a cab service for her, but like the three or four that I dialed up, conveniently they're like, "Oh, we don't have any drivers." It's like, really, 9:30 at night, the trains are messed up, and you don't have any drivers. Sure you don't. Sure you don't. But anyway, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we're okay. We're okay. You know, we have food, we have water, we have everything we need, and a few things we want. There was no flooding. And my heart goes out to those who have, endured flooding or, you know, more than just the relatively minor inconveniences I have experienced this week. So I hope everybody's doing well. This video is sort of, I guess, a thought piece because this is inspired actually by a clip of the Shang Tsung striker fight from, I think it's called Battle of the Realms. Right, there's been like a lot of Mortal Kombat stuff coming out this year. There was the 2021 film in April. There was Scorpion's Revenge, and now there's Battle of the Realms. Right, Scorpion's Revenge and Battle of the Realms are animated. I think Battle of the Realms is the sequel to Scorpion's Revenge, and the 2021 film, of course, was live action. Now, I haven't really followed or watched any of this stuff beyond reviews from like, Mortal Kombat commentary personalities like Fourth Snake or anything, because I don't believe that modern iterations of Mortal Kombat, for example, Mortal Kombat 11, understand what Mortal Kombat is or what Mortal Kombat was, and what kept Mortal Kombat around for, what, 29 years now? Next year it'll be 30 years, so essentially 30 years now. So, as anybody who's been a long-time viewer of the channel knows, I have ranted and I have raved to heaven and back, right? About Mortal Kombat 11 and the various things I don't like about it. In particular, what they did to the women. In particular, what they did to Sindel, right? So, as anybody who's been a long-time viewer of the channel will help you, I am not terribly happy with modern day Mortal Kombat as someone who grew up in the old school and literally grew up with the series. I have played every major Mortal Kombat fighting game from the first one to Armageddon. I haven't played any of the games um, in the reboot. I personally think the reboot never should have happened, personally. But I have followed the newer series, if only just because of my interest as a longtime player and fan. But I was watching this particular clip, right? This is a screenshot from it. This is when Shang turns into Striker, right? Which is a long time special move he's had. Seeing a few of Shang's special moves was a little interesting. But, how do I put it? This fight scene between Shang and Striker, I think, really highlighted and really encapsulated the issue I have, or one of the issues I have, with modern day Mortal Kombat, whether it be in the games or live action movies or these animated movies. So I'm gonna try to explain what happens in the fight, so spoilers. I'll link to it also, but be warned, especially if you're a bit sensitive to graphic violence. Striker's demise is very graphic. It is Mortal Kombat after all, right? So if you don't like graphic stuff, if you don't like the violence in the Mortal Kombat games, probably best just to listen to my description and not watch the clip. If you're not bothered by the violence in the Mortal Kombat games, watch the clip. You have been warned. Right, so what happens here is that it's supposed to be the tournament setting, right? I'm guessing this is Khan's Arena or some variation of it, right? And Shang and Stryker face off. Okay. Stryker ends up dying. It's Mortal Kombat. I'm not bothered by that. And I'm not bothered by the fact that Stryker loses to old man Shang, right? Even old Shang, is still a nigh immortal sorcerer who's been stealing souls for hundreds of years and has hundreds of years of tournament experience, combat experience, right? The souls of who knows how many warriors and champions. So him being able to defeat Stryker, who's more or less just a cop, right? In the original games, he debuted in Mortal Kombat 3. He was sort of like an everyman beat cop type character. He was a riot cop. And then later on in the last 3 games, might have been Deception and Armageddon. And certainly in the reboot, they tried to make him cooler by making him a SWAT officer, right? So a bit higher, a bit more serious than your regular beat cop. But when you compare him to the other characters in Mortal Kombat, he's certainly meant to be a more down-to-earth, everyman type character, which is fine. But I don't expect an everyman type character defeat, the ancient, powerful sorcerer who's the former champion of Mortal Kombat. Though, as some people point out in the comments on this video, it's like, so Shang gets to use the Soul Steel and he gets to summon fireballs and everything, but Stryker can't even draw his guns or his nightstick or anything, right? But here's the thing. Here's the thing. And here's what sort of inspired this thought piece. It's not the fact that Stryker dies. I perfectly expect that. Stryker's not a super popular character. Of course they're gonna kill him off. And he's not terribly important to the overall plot of the games or the overall story, so of course they're gonna kill him off. That's not what bothers me. It's how it happens. Now I'm going to try to not be too graphic, but what basically happens is that Shang at a certain point literally turns himself into like a green soul or whatever, right? He turns himself into a green soul, inhabits Stryker's body, and more or less forces Stryker to sort of walk backwards into one of these, like, you see these like spiky blades here, these things here look like they should be at the bottom of the pit. Is this the bottom of the pit? Maybe that's what this is. It's the bottom of the pit. That looks more like Khan's Arena or something. But anyway, he makes him walk into one of these things, and so he ends up impaling himself through the stomach. Then he, again, still in Stryker's body, makes Stryker rip his own head off, which is something that does not make any sense to me. Why not just use one of Shang's classic fatalities, like the Soul Steel or the Bed of Spikes, right? And even if you want to go with this particular thing, how has Shang ever been able to turn himself into a soul? I can understand perhaps if he summoned a soul and sent it into Stryker and then moved Stryker around like a marionette, but he quite literally turns into a soul. He can't do that. He never has done that. And controls Stryker and makes him kill himself twice. First by impaling himself, then somehow by ripping off his own head. Which is something I also don't understand how he can make him do that. I can understand someone else like, say, Goro, a character with immense strength, ripping off Stryker's head. I don't understand how he can make Stryker himself do that. Maybe if he made Stryker, break his own neck, which is what Shang did to kill Liu Kang. He got behind Liu and broke Liu's neck, right? But I can understand maybe if he made Stryker break his own neck if he's in control of his body, but how he made him literally rip his own head off is beyond me. I think that this was done just for the spectacle of it all, right? For the gruesomeness, and that was it. I don't think and that this was meant to make any sense from a lore perspective. And I'm too much of a lore hound to really enjoy modern day Mortal Kombat. So that's another issue for me personally. But something else that I noticed, this, how do I put this? This sort of made me think about what my issue with modern day Mortal Kombat is. And here's the thing, I want to be clear. It's perfectly fine if you enjoy this. If you enjoy it for what it is. If you like the MK11 or you like the films or whatever. I will not, shame anybody for their taste. Right? You have the right to like it just as I have the right to dislike it. But one of the common defenses, or I guess positive statements made about stuff like this, the 2021 film and these two animated films now is the praise that it gets for finally uh, being as graphic with the violence as the games themselves are, right? And here's the issue I have with that. Here's the issue I have with that. Mortal Kombat is more than its violence, okay? And I speak as someone who's played every original game in the original series. Here's the thing about violence in Mortal Kombat. Is violence an essential part of the games in the series? Yes. It's a deathmatch tournament. Of course, there's going to be violence, right? But the violence in the end is a gimmick, right? It's a gimmick. It's something to draw people in and to generate, or at least back in the day, right, to generate controversy. This is, of course, Sub-Zero performing the spine rip fatality on Kano from the first game. And that was in, what, 1992, right? So I want to be clear. I'm not saying in any way that the violence is not important or not essential or not a distinct element of the games. It is. I know. I've played every single game in the original series. But the violence is a gimmick, right? And just like in wrestling, right, a person's gimmick, right, it's their persona. It's the character that they play, right? It's the visuals, right? Whether it's Steve Austin's vest, whether it's The Rock's eyebrow, whether it's Shawn Michaels coming out like a male stripper, right? It's a gimmick. It's a character that you play. But here's the thing. Just like with a wrestling gimmick, you need more than just a flashy look to be successful, right? You need a story. You need interesting characters, right? This, in my opinion, is what has allowed Mortal Kombat and other long-running fighting games like Street Fighter and Tekken and Soul Calibur to persist for so long. Not the violence, believe it or not, right? The violence is what gets people interested, right? That's the gimmick. That's the thing that makes it stand out with everything else, right? Ooh, Mortal Kombat, you can tear your opponent's head off. Ooh, Soul Calibur, it's a history fight, right? Or it takes place in history, right? Not exactly historically accurate, right? But ooh, it has weapons and everything. Like, ooh, Tekken uses uh, relatively realistic martial arts, or at least it did. Did in the beginning, right? A lot of these things, as they persist over the decades, right? Um, they change over time, and that's okay. But if there's one thing I've learned from growing up, literally playing Mortal Kombat and playing these games back when they were new, it's that while the violence might be what brings a person into it, might be what attracts them. Ooh, you can fight with weapons. Ooh, you can kill your opponent. Ooh, you can do a 100-hit combo. Whatever it is. It's not why they stay. It is not why they stay. They stay because of the characters. They stay because they become invested in the characters and in the story and in the world that the games create and build upon with each new entry. That's how you get a long running franchise. Emotional investment from fans who want to see what's next. And what's next is what's next in the story, right? That and are the who were the new characters. But even then, after a certain point, when the franchise becomes established, people don't really want new characters anymore. They're not really invested in who the new person is, and they want all of their old favorites back. Looking for example, like Third Strike for Street Fighter, right? They introduced all of these new characters, and it's like some of them came back, like Urian and Oro, but it's like, when's the last time you ever seen Remy? Right? No one cares about Remy. Right? Everybody wants Ryu and Ken and Chun-Li in the original 12 from like Super Street Fighter back, but nobody gives a damn about Remy. Right? But that's what draws people in. That's what keeps people around, right? And I can tell you this because I remember as a kid when Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and all these games started taking off, right? Lesser companies, right? Companies that weren't as big as Capcom or weren't as big as Midway or Namco or stuff like that started trying to make their own versions of this game. And in particular, with Mortal Kombat, you had games that tried to follow in its footsteps, like Tattoo Assassins. I never played Tattoo Assassins, but I've seen playthroughs of it. By God, is that game awful. It is terrible. But games like Tattoo Assassins or Eternal Champions, which I actually am a fan of. I think that under the right circumstances and with a dedicated team, it actually could come back. I always thought it had an interesting premise. If you never played Eternal Champions, it's basically, different people throughout different times of history died before they could, make their impact on the world, and then they basically compete in a very Mortal Kombat-esque tournament to fight the Eternal Champion so they can come back to life, right? And sort of, live out their life and impact history in the world the way they should have had they not died originally, right? That's sort of the premise of it. It's like, if you ever read Drifters, right? Then Drifters and Eternal Champions share a few common themes, right? Especially with the whole, being dead but fighting for your life uh, uh, type of thing, right? So there's that, and I do think it's Eternal Champions had a sequel. I think it's Tales from the Dark Side or something to that effect. But as a series, it never took off, right? And I can tell you why it never took off. Because, first of all, it came across as simply a clone. I liked the game, but it came across as a clone. But two, like Tattoo Assassins, it focused on the violence too much, in my opinion. It seemed to be that, oh, if we can be as gory and gruesome as Mortal Kombat, well then, we'll have the same success. No, you won't. The violence alone might be what draws people in, but it is not what makes people stay. What makes people stay is an interesting plot, interesting characters, interesting character arcs. It's the story. The story is why people stay. In fact, if you ever followed Tobias's Twitter online, he tweets about the classic games and the actually very detailed thought process that he had when he was developing these various characters for the first three games. And here's the thing. John Tobias has worked in comics, so he understands the importance of characterization and storytelling and archetypes, things that I think many of the people who have been in charge of the storytelling since his departure about 20 or so years ago now from Midway have forgotten as the games have gone on. The story has always been what is most important. Yes, the violence draws people in. The violence is what makes it stand out. I'm not asking in any way for a less tame Mortal Kombat. But remember that what while what brings people to the game is the violence, what keeps people invested is the story. This is why so many people, myself included, got so up in arms over the Sindel retcon. It made absolutely no sense from a storytelling perspective, from a characterization perspective. They just retconned her to be evil. And then Dominic Gianciolo goes, "Oh, we were trying to make her similar to Lady Macbeth," and everybody's like, "No, you didn't. No, you're not." So I just wish that people who use the whole, oh, it's the modern day stuff, right? The 2021 film or the movies are like, oh, well, it's finally as violent as it should be. Yes, it is. These depictions are finally embracing the game's violent origins. But are they embracing the storytelling? Because for me, and I think for many others, guess what? While watching Stryker stab himself and then rip off his own head might be interesting for some, I think for many others, they're gonna have the same reaction that I had. But why though? Why would he do this? How did he do this? Why would Shang do this? Why would Shang kill the man in this particular fashion? Right? So I think that's about it. That's about everything I can say about it. This is basically a rambling thought piece about how storytelling needs to come back to a gory 90s 90s edge fighting game. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed my TED Talk. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day or night wherever you are. I'm sort of caught between being a responsible adult and doing my chores and just laying around with RJ all day. So we'll see what happens. See you around. Have a good weekend. Bye.